What were you doing when you got the Mike and Molly? What do you have an audition for that? I'm sure.
When I did Mike and Molly,
yeah. Like, what were you doing before you got Mike and Molly?
I was about ready to leave California.
Right. You would just get to the point where you're almost done with it, and somebody call and say, hey, we have an audition for you. You probably gone on a bunch of auditions, probably sick of doing them. You'd never get it.
No, I wish it was that romantic.
Really?
No, I hadn't booked anything in about 2 years.
Okay.
And my marriage was in a bad place.
Okay.
I was getting sober. And
how bad of a were you just drinking, drugs? How bad was it?
You know, I only did I fiddled with drugs just to keep drinking.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a brown shoe whiskey guy.
Right.
You know what I mean? I want to sit at the bar and think about how heavy the world is.
Right.
Well, I used to.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was my thing. Whiskey. In fact, it was shortly after Jameson that I got sober. I start sending cases of Jameson to the house. That's going to cause some problems.
I mean, they would send us bottles on our birthday, Christmas,
give it to you. Everywhere we went. Put that in your hand.
It got to the point where I had to ask for a glass of water. Yeah. I go, can I please have a glass of water? Is that possible?
So I had our friend Randy Bauman in Pittsburgh. You know, I call into DVE. I'm still a fan of radio and television. I'm from Earth One.
Right.
I haven't gone to the other side yet. So I needed to take care of my family. I had a new baby at the time. And so I was like, hey, man, I think I might be moving back to Pittsburgh. And he said, well, come on the show and, you know, I'll be one of your guys for him.
Right.
You know, which would have been fine with me. I would have.
This is
no problem with it.
One of the better talk shows in the country.
Yeah.
These guys, they're similar to us. They're a rock station, but they also have the Pittsburgh Penguin games on. Like, they're the cool station in Pittsburgh.
He's like you guys. Exactly. And it's an intelligent show, and it's something I could have been comfortable doing. I said, I'm going to ride out one more pilot season. Now, pilot season used to be a 3-month period where, you know, from like January to March, they would have the new pilots and you would audition for those and hope you got a show.
Right.
And then hopefully it took off and all the other things happened. And I only got 3 auditions in that entire 3-month run. And the last audition was Mike and Molly.
Really?
I said, I'm going to ride out one more pilot season. Well, in that 3 months, 3 auditions, that was it. So I figured I'm headed home.
Do you remember what the other 2 were?
No. And I don't care.
Yeah.
But the third one was Mike and Molly. And I got that because the guy who played my partner on that show, Reno, Reno Wilson, who's like a brother of mine, and he played Officer Carl, but he called me and a couple weeks out, and he's like, hey, man, there's this show called Mike and Molly. I'm telling you, it's us. It's us. It's us. Get an audition for it. Get your agent on it.
Right.
So I asked my agent. He gets me in to the audition. So I do the audition, and they give me a call back. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe we're live here.
Yeah,
spark, right? So I'm going to read in front of Chuck Lorre. And I was late for that audition, which I'm never late to any. My dad's a Navy guy. 5 minutes early, 10 minutes late.
Right.
You know? I was running from a doctor's appointment, and there was traffic and blah blah blah.
Typical LA time. Yeah.
So just anywhere you want to go is an hour. So, but I'm like 20 minutes late, and I'm like, oh God, I just screwed myself. So, but the auditions were still going on. So I get there, and I think, all right, I got to think of something to say to him to break the ice, or he's just going to think I'm a complete loser, right? So I walk in, I go, I go, he goes, hello. I go, hi, I go, Mr. Lorre, Billy Gardell. I go, I just want to let you know what I like to do, Chuck. I like to find the most powerful guy in TV, and I like to make him simmer for about 20 minutes before I perform. I just like the added pressure. And he nicely laughed.
You laughed at,
And then I did the read, and then he actually, they called me to come in and test for the network. And I said no. Because, and I wish I had some story where I was like, I said no because I'm an artist. No, I was terrified because I had a small development deal with Nickelodeon also.
Okay.
And my manager was kind of pushing them back and keeping them on hold until we found out what happened with this.
Yeah.
But I was worried because I was going to use that. I didn't think that Nickelodeon thing was going to go, but it was a little development money. And I thought that'll get us back to Pittsburgh.
Gotcha.
And I can
you don't want to blow that
camp, and I don't want to. And so I said, no, thank you. I said, I think I'm going to go with this thing. And then Warner Brothers called, and I didn't take their call. Not very smart. And then finally Chuck called me himself.
Wow.
Oh.
And he said,
that's the biggest guy in TV at the time.
Yeah. And I have to give him so much credit, man, because I don't know where I was in my life at that time, but I just decided to really be honest with this guy.
Right.
And I said, man, I know who you are. And I said, I if it was another time in my life, I'd be over there, washing your car.
Right.
I go, but here's the deal. I'm trying to repair my marriage. I just quit drinking. I'm out of my mind. I go, I'm trying to pull my life together. And I have a little development deal over at Nickelodeon, and I'm going to use that money to get my family back out. And he goes, well, why did you come in for the audition? I said, honestly, I was hoping to get like a reoccurring part, like The Neighbor or like a once in a while thing. And he goes, I think you're the guy. And he goes, and I'm pretty good at this.
I would have been like, thank God we got rid of this guy. He's
And he goes, look, man, I think you're right for this. And he goes, and I'm going to surround you with a phenomenal cast, and we're going to do a little play every week. And he goes, and I'm going to help get you a great cast to carry the bucket of water up the hill. And he goes, I want you to trust me. And
Wow.
I said, yeah, but if both of these things go away, then I can't get out of California, and I'm just in a tough place right now. And he goes, well, just come in and give me a chance. He goes, do that. I said, well, I need to talk this over with my wife. And he said, okay, I understand, man. He goes, and he gave me his cell number. And he goes, call me on Monday. So I called my wife, and this is where I give my
I would
wife.
be stressing out that I'm going to be like, Chuck Lorre is going to wake up tomorrow and be like, you know what, screw that guy.
Yeah.
I'd be so worried about that, but you were really wanting to take care of your stuff.
There was so much other damage in my life.
Yeah.
That I had to pull it together, and that was my priority because I didn't want to lose her. I wanted to be sane.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what was next.
Not too many people have that kind of,
It was fear. It was fear.
Yeah,
man.
but it was also
terrified.
strength. You were able to pull yourself together.
Yeah, I was trying to hold the line.
Yeah.
And so I called my wife, and this is where I give her such grace and dignity and power in my life because, to her credit, we were literally on the rocks, man. And to her credit, I told her the whole situation, and she said, no matter what happens with us, you have to go take this call. She said, you've been waiting for this call your entire life.
Yeah.
And she goes, I'm not going to be the reason you don't take that call. She goes, we're working on it. And she said, but you need to go in there. This is the call you've been waiting on for 25 years.
How unselfish of her. That's great.
Yeah. Mind-boggling.
Yeah.
And so I called Chuck back on Monday, and I said, all right, man, I talked to my wife. We're in. I
Yeah.
said, and I'm a little worried. He goes, I'm pretty good at getting what I want.
Yeah.
So the auditions came for the network, and I was supposed to go in to audition at CBS. Now, back in that day, you went over to CBS on Fairfax.
Right.
It was this big, it was like going into the Death Star. I don't know, fly casual. It was that.
Yeah.
Because you go in, and then they take you in an elevator down to the basement, and then they take you to this room that's like, it's got the waffle soundproof stuff. And you sit in a chair, and there's a light on you, like an interrogation light. They used to do that, I think, to intimidate you. To see, like, if they'll crack here, then
Yeah.
So then all the network executives would sit
And watch.
in the theater, but it was blacked out. You couldn't see them, and it was just you and a casting agent. I have auditioned. I went 9 for 9. I was in there auditioning for a pilot once a year, every year for 9 years.
9 years.
Never booked anything.
Right.
And one year I went in there twice. And the second time I was in there, I tried to crack a joke because I was still heavy. I go, hey, listen, if you guys don't give me this one, can you put me on Survivor so I could drop a few? Nothing. Just dead silent. I'm like, oh. So I told Chuck, because I go, man, I got to tell you something. I go, I hate that room.
Yeah.
I go, I've left more audition blood on the floor of that place than anywhere else. And this is when I first knew I was in a different stratosphere because Chuck goes, he's just quiet for a second. He goes, all right, I'll have him come over to my office. I was like, okay, we're in a different, this is like playing for the Yankees. So I walked in, and then karma kind of spun around. Peter Roth, who was the head of Warner Brothers for 20 years and probably the last great television man. He, at the time when I came to Hollywood, was the president of Fox. And he saw me at the Laugh Factory, wanted to give me a development deal, did. And then like a week later took the gig at Warner Brothers. He was just starting there.
Deal hanging.
Well, I was there, but as you know, what happens is Doug Herzog came in, and whoever the new regime is, they come in and clear the table and say, yeah. But Peter was always a fan. So now he's the head of Warner Brothers. Chuck's office is at Warner Brothers. So now I walk in, and there's Chuck, and Peter comes over and gives me a big hug.
Yeah.
Now I got Chuck and Peter.
I got two of your biggest fans of the
in
top
my
guys.
corner.
Yeah, that's
so
great.
that was unbelievable. And then they said, we're going to have Jimmy Burrows direct. who directed Cheers and
Yeah,
Taxi.
everything.
And we ended up becoming very good friends. But I was really nervous to see him too, because 4 years before that, I had auditioned for Jimmy for a pilot, and I locked up in the room.
Oh,
like,
really?
Flop sweat, couldn't get the words out, had to start like it was Albert Brooks in broadcast. I just ruined it. And I thought, oh God, that's all he's gonna remember. And then so I did the thing, Chuck and Peter in my corner. I get the part as Mike. So now we go to the first table read, and Burroughs is there, and I'm like, oh God, this guy's gonna think just I'm terrible. So we do the table read, and it goes really great. And then I come up to Burroughs afterwards. And I go, listen, I auditioned in front of you like 4 years ago, and I know I really tanked it, and I went in the toilet, and I just want you to know I'm going to be working really hard for you, man. I got this. I'm in a different stratosphere. I know how to do this now. I promise you I'm going to be on it for you. And Burroughs goes, what are you talking about? I don't remember any of that. I'll see you Monday. And then
in your head, it was the biggest thing.
Dude,
and he was like,
I couldn't even.
I've seen 800 people a week flop over here. Yeah.
Exactly.
That's so great.
But you know, your fear is always self-centered.
Yeah.
So you're like, me. He thinks me. But he had no idea. He was like, I don't even remember seeing you.